So,
our guest here this half hour is Delegate Elliot Pritt. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran. Welcome him in on the phone line. Good morning, Delegate. How are you, sir?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you all today?
Just fine, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I enlisted right out of high school, and I served from 2008 to 2014, active duty. I lived in New Mexico. I lived in Japan for nearly 3 years, and got to see a lot of really awesome places in the world and a lot of really not so awesome places in the world. But I'm thankful for the time that I had, and I miss it. I miss it a lot most days.
what was your job within the Air Force? This is John Kilstrap.
Yeah, I did avionics maintenance on Special Operations C-130. So MC-130H is the Talon tubes. So specifically, I was responsible for maintaining the terrain following radar system on that aircraft.
Okay.
I know.
What is the? How often does it break? It sounds like if this is it's the MC, not AC, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like infill, exfil, supply drops, embassy evacs, that kind of thing. But all the planes that I worked on when I was active duty are at the boneyard now. So they've all since been retired. But the radar, like the systems I worked on, were generally reliable. The radar, not so much. But I mean, we were busy every day. I was never shot at. I pulled a toolbox every day, but we worked 12 or more than 12-hour shifts just about every day that I was in. The Air Force Special Operations Command, AFSOC, the maintenance tempo is really, really high. It's really fast.
So did they break often, or was it just a matter of routine tweaking that to make sure that it was working, or did they vibrate themselves to death?
Or heavy maintenance. I mean, we did a whole lot of everything. A lot of it operator error, a lot of it just system design, and the planes that we were working on, were at the tail end of their lifespan when I was in. So they had been in Desert Storm, they had been in Enduring Freedom, they had been in Iraqi Freedom, and so they were pretty well worn out by the time frame in which I was working on them. So we went with the planes everywhere that they went because that terrain following radar was like a key component of their mission. It allowed them to fly, hug the terrain and fly below radar signature. So for what was designed to originally be a cargo plane, that could get hairy at times. So, but like I said, I mean, I really enjoyed my time in it. I miss it, and I think about the guys I served with a lot, and I'm thankful for everybody that takes time out of their lives to do that. They say less than 1% of our nation's population actually serves, but I think the more troubling statistic is that there's less than 24% of all of our nation's young men are even eligible for service if anything were to happen. So I think that those things are worth exploring.
Delegate Pritt, this is Matt Miller. I just wanted to ask, as far as, when you talked about working on those particular models of aircraft and the missions that they had already run, do you know what, like, the life expectancy of one of those aircraft typically was?
I do not have an answer to that question. I can imagine that it was way before I worked on them. But, we did what it took to keep them flying, and there really was. I teach public school now, and so to see an immediate return or an immediate reward on the job that I do now is it takes a long time to see an improvement in kids, especially kids that need to improve. But when you're working on aircraft and it's broken, you can see the fruits of your labor immediately. It's broken, it can't fly for a certain reason. You do your job and you watch it take off in the air. And that's very rewarding.
You mentioned earlier some of those places that you got to see, including Japan and some that were not the greatest. What were some of those spots that you really enjoyed, and what made some of the ones that you visited not so great?
Yeah, so traveling, I grew up in southern West Virginia. And my family, the only family I have out of West Virginia, I have two cousins that live in Colorado and outside of Denver, and that's it. So all of my family my life experience revolved around, the coal fields in West Virginia. And so for somebody like me, to get out and be able to see a lot of places in the world was really eye-opening. And it kind of helped shape who I am. I lived in Japan. My house was in Japan, I should say. I was not often there. I was gone a lot. I've been to Thailand, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, Sri Lanka. I've been to Bangladesh. We did an embassy evacuation in Bangladesh once, and that was pretty hairy. But I've learned a lesson from every place I've been. I don't want to disparage anyone else's country on the radio, I guess, but there was positive and negative about a whole lot of places that I went.
You mentioned a mission to, bring people out of an embassy. What does that look like? Because I'm like thinking, where do you land a C-130 anywhere near an embassy to be able to get people out?
So a C-130 actually needs way less space to take off and land than what you would think. That's one of the reasons why that airframe was chosen to do like AFSOC operations, and it can take a beating. Like it can land on unpaved runways. So because the intakes for the motors are up, the intakes for the engines are up on the top of the wing instead of a lot of planes they're down low. So they're less likely to ingest things, and the bottom of them are reinforced, like they're tough. So we, I was enlisted. I turned a wrench every day. I was not involved in operational planning. But, I can just imagine anywhere we could in an emergency situation like that. We landed at the airport in Dhaka at the Bengali Air Base there and just wait for the embassy cars to show up and get those people out. But you could just tell by the looks on a lot of their faces what was going on was not a pleasant experience. I think that was around the time frame that garment factory collapsed in Dhaka. I don't know if any of you all recall that being in the news. And a lot of the local people were pretty upset.
Well, to put this in perspective, one of the ways you know if you can respect an airframe is how long it's been in service. The first C-130 flew in 1956.
Yes.
And that airframe, that was the C-130A. I don't know what we're up to now. The Z,
the J, I think.
Yeah. So it's been around for a long time, and it's been tested for a long time, and it's been adapted many different ways. Mm-hmm. Do you ever consider becoming a lifer in the Air Force?
So that kind of was my original plan, but my ex-wife and I were both from here, and we were still married, living in Japan at the time, and my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Mm-hmm. And so I made the decision to get out and to move home and help my mom take care of my dad while he died. It was like over a year and a half long process. And so I miss it every day. But I also, if I had not made the decision I made, I wouldn't have had time with my dad. I wouldn't have had that time home with my family. And I think for me in my life, that was something that was invaluable. But at one point I did, and I miss it. I've occasionally flirted with the idea of maybe calling the National Guard recruiter and seeing, but then I take stock of my life and like, Elliot, where are you going to fit that into what you're already doing with your life? So, but yeah.
So what about it do you miss so much?
I miss the closeness of everyone. Never before have I been around a group of people that could so easily say goodbye to one another, but also when they were together be so close. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact we're all in the same boat. We're all away from our family. We're all away from everybody that we know, our friends. And so that brings you close to the people that are in your proximity real quick. And I made some truly lifelong friendships. Some true lifelong friendships. So I was in a lot of those guys I still talk to on a weekly basis, or they'll see pictures, they'll send me a message, I'll see, and these are people that I will speak to the rest of my life. So I miss that a lot.
Do you participate in like the American Legion or any of those military-oriented groups?
I am a member of the VFW post out of Anstead, West Virginia, but there hasn't, unfortunately, been. It's the last VFW post in Fayette County, and it's pretty small membership. Most of the guys are pretty advanced in age, and we haven't had a meeting in a while. But aside from that, I don't participate in any of those organizations.
Take us back to your decision to enlist. Was there military history in your family, or what was behind your decision to say, I want to go Air Force?
Yeah, so my great-grandfather served in World War II. He got drafted into the Army and blew out his knee in boot camp and was discharged but refused to sit at home. During that time, service was defined in a very different way. We all know that. And so he enlisted in the Merchant Marines, because he refused to sit at home. And so he was on a merchant marine ship in the Pacific Theater during World War II. And then, I grew up hearing story of his sons. My uncles, one retired from the Navy, one retired from the Army National Guard. So I got to grow up my entire life listening to stories of the crazy things they experienced and the stuff that they did. And both of them encouraged me to join the Air Force. So that's one of the reasons why I made that decision. They both said, we'd rather you go to college and commission, you'll get treated better, they said, but Air Force is a good choice. And I enlisted. I missed promised scholarship. I made a 19 in my math score, but I made like a 25 composite at that time. I don't remember what the cutoff was for math that year, but I didn't make it. And I wasn't super sure what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to saddle my parents with all that. And so I made, my parents signed papers with me at 17. I enlisted at 17.
I figure that most people that enlist, especially in the Air Force, the thought is, I'm flying a plane. I'm a jet fighter pilot. I'm Top Gun. Did you have ideas of being in the air, being a pilot, or did you know all along you wanted to do, more of the maintenance and take care of the plane itself?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to fly a plane. My eyes are too bad. I don't have great eyesight, but I never really wanted to. I went into the electrical field, and I knew generally what kind of job I was going to have. They promised me a subset, basically, that I didn't go in open. Based on my ASVAB score, which was pretty good at the time. I don't remember. It was like 28. I don't remember what the cutoff was, but it was well above what was needed for an avionics or technical field. And so I got subset into that field. So I knew generally what I was going to be doing. I just didn't know what airframe I was going to be working on. And so you kind of get your base assignment after you're done with your technical school. And I was in technical school for over 6 months after boot camp, nearly 6 months. I was at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then Shepherd Air Force Base in northern Texas, Wichita Falls. So for my tech training, but it was, like I said, it was rewarding. I enjoyed what I did.
Once you get assigned to that aircraft, do you ever get a chance to be around many other aircraft? In other words, did you still at times get to be close to and see the inside operations of fighter jets and or other types of aircraft?
I got to listen to them enough. I think it might have damaged my hearing. Taking off next to us every day in Japan. No, we had F-15s and F-22s at Kadena while I was there. But, we were so busy. Our planes kept us so busy. Just to be frank with you, they were broken very often. And so it was everything for me to learn my own airframe inside and out well enough to be able to become a great troubleshooter. And so I was fortunate to be able to be assigned to one airframe. I wasn't in an incredibly long time, 6 years, but I was fortunate to be assigned to the same airframe that I was in the entire time. But I did work with guys that did cross airframe maintenance.
Are the flight crews assigned to a single airframe as well? So do you have a close working relationship with the pilots who are very interested in making sure that what you're doing is done well?
Yes, and so flight crew definitely is assigned to one airframe, from what I understand, because each aircraft just has different characteristics in flight, and so they kind of become experts on that frame. And AFSOC, Special Operations Command, is pretty small. There's only a handful of bases, so I served with a lot of the same guys, and a lot of the same guys and girls that I served with others. They all rotated between those same 4 or 5 bases, and so everybody really kind of knew each other. Like we'd get a name, we knew a new airman or a new staff sergeant or somebody else coming into the shop, and somebody like, I know him, I worked with him at Mildenhall in England. It was kind of like a small family, to be honest.
So AFSOC, Special Operations Command, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was it labeled as such?
Yes.
Okay.
I worked in a Special Operations Maintenance group.
So it was kind of the fact of the base was an open secret, or not a secret at all?
It's pretty. Yeah, I mean that's not a secret, and it's interesting because the bases themselves may be under a certain command, but the AFSOC unit is like a subset on the base. So we're under a separate command, kind of away from the base, even though we're on the base, because it functions somewhat semi-independently. And so we kind of had our own finance staff, our own managerial staff, aside from the main base. And so it was kind of a unique experience that way.
So let me talk a little bit about your experience as a veteran, and then also your role as a delegate at the State House. Mm-hmm. How are veterans doing in West Virginia? We hear a lot about elevated suicide rates. We hear a lot about veteran homelessness, and we hear about the dark sides. Here on this show, of course, we've heard about successful people who moved on and don't experience that. What are you seeing, and what is West Virginia doing to help these people?
A lot of West Virginians serve in the military, and I think that we know that. I think percentage-wise, more people from our state, per capita serve than almost any other state, or have served. And I think we as a state have done a pretty good job at providing opportunities for these people. And I think obviously a lot of that depends on regionally where they live. We have parts of our state that are doing much better economically than other parts. It's a pretty stark contrast. But I think overall, we provide veterans benefits in addition to their federal benefits. We recently worked on an education bill that would give veterans the opportunity to have their permanent teaching certificate, much like someone who goes through university and gets a degree in teaching, if they were in a similar field in the military and passed their certification tests. So we're offering opportunities to these people. But if you're asking about, mental health issues, it's hard for me to imagine that what our veterans in this state are dealing with is much different than any other state. I think a lot of vets deal with depression and a lot of things that just come with the nature of what a lot of people had to do as their job while they were in. So
tell us a little bit about how you feel your experience in the military has helped to prepare you for the roles that you now serve in life. You mentioned being a teacher and how that impacts the way that maybe you are able to connect with students, and also as a delegate. How do those military experiences help to prepare you to be in a leadership role in our state?
Yeah, I'll be truthful with you. We just had a veterans dinner. It's the first school I've ever worked at where the administration had a dinner for us. And out of a staff of nearly 100, only 3 of us were vets. Not a dinner or breakfast. They had it for us yesterday at school. There were only 3. And that shocked me. And I found myself a lot of places, even in the legislature, it's a pretty small minority that are vets. And not that gives someone an inherent better quality than someone else. We all serve our country in different ways. But I, the family I grew up in, so many men were veterans. It's just kind of a disjointed experience from my childhood to adulthood as far as how many people are vets. But I often think about a lot of the things that I've been through in my life kind of prepared me for where I am today. I've been through a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. And I think that helps me relate to my students. I think a lot of the places I've been in the world, help gives me perspective when talking about subjects or different things in the classroom. And I live in Fayette County. A lot of our students live in poverty, and I think being able to talk to them about options that they have. I always tell all my students, it's like, listen, nothing is permanent. If you're not happy with your life, if you're not happy with the way you're treated or what's going on, I said, it will not be very long, and you'll have the ability to do something about that. I said, and if you're unhappy about the way you've been treated by your parents, my advice to you would be don't do that to your own kids. And to be able to provide them that kind of like alternate opportunity, say, hey, military service is available to you. This is what it did for my life. I think it's invaluable. It's helped me connect to the kids, and it's helped me build respect with a lot of kids.
It seems to me that in a community where where there is a lot of poverty, the military is such a natural off-ramp to get out of that cycle. Is there? I'm not sure what do you teach high school?
I do. I teach 9th grade literature now. Yeah, the last time we spoke, I was teaching 7th and 8th grade history. So they finally promoted me up a little bit. Yeah.
Is there an ROTC program?
Yeah, so we have an Army JROTC program at our high school, and so I teach at Oak Hill High School in Fayette County. It's the largest high school in the county. We're 4A now, and we have an JROTC program at our vocational school, which is on the same campus as our high school. So the kids at the high school that do that program walk up the hill, and they take their classes up there and walk back to campus. So,
is it well attended?
I think so. I don't know the number, but I think so. I see a lot of kids wearing green uniforms throughout the week. So
that's good. That's hopeful.
Yeah, it is. It is. And even if they never go on to military service, it's something that teaches them discipline, respect for our country, basic things that every citizen truly should know and do.
We're down to, I think, about our last 45 seconds here. Anything that you would like to say about...
Yeah, I just think, if you're someone that's served and you're struggling with things and maybe you're not in a good mental space, seek help. Seek help. There are people that care about you. There's family that needs you, and people are thankful for you. So,
good word. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you inviting me on. I really do.
Thank you. Enjoyed the conversation.
Yep. Thank you to Delegate Elliot Pritt, U.S. Air Force vet. Thank you to him for his service as well.